Bertempat di panggung negara, satu rapat umum dan pertunjukan budaya telah dilangsungkan pada 8 hari bulan Ogos lalu menjelang Hari Kebangsaan Singapura yang pertama. Para tetamu yang diundang sejak dari pukul 6 petang sudah berpusu-pusu masuk ke panggung negara, walaupun acara-acara persembahan malam itu bermula dari pukul 7:30 malam. Para penonton terdiri daripada rakyat segenap lapisan masyarakat berbilang bangsa. Selain dari pemimpin-pemimpin masyarakat, anggota-anggota jawatankuasa perundingan rakyat, jawatankuasa pengurus-pengurus balai rakyat, pemimpin-pemimpin agama, ialah ahli-ahli parlimen dan para diplomat asing. Perdana Menteri turut sama hadir dan berucap kepada perhimpunan itu. Ucapannya menyentuh masa-masa yang lalu dan apa yang seharusnya dilakukan bagi membentuk satu masa depan yang tetap untuk setiap rakyat di Republik ini. Ucapan beliau disampaikan dalam bahasa kebangsaan, bahasa Inggeris dan bahasa Tionghoa.
Esok kita mulai tahun yang kedua. Dan malam ini patut kita mengkaji semulanya bagaimana pertunjukan rakyat Singapura di tahun yang pertama. Adakah kita mundur atau rasa lemah, atau adakah Singapura bersatu padu maju ke hadapan? Tak payah jikalau saya cakap kita boleh hidup selamat dan maju. Oleh ini kewajipan rakan-rakan saya dan saya. Tetapi pertunjukan rakyat Singapura dalam tahun yang lalu menjadi bukti bagaimana suatu masyarakat yang giat bekerja, yang ada inisiatif, yang mau membinakan satu masyarakat yang lebih makmur, lebih adil, lebih bahagia, boleh mengukuhkan kedudukannya dalam Asia Tenggara. Malam ini biarlah saya bagi jaminan kepada warga negara Singapura, khasnya orang-orang yang tahun yang dahulu merasa duka cita bila Singapura terpisah dengan Malaysia, yaitu orang-orang Melayu. Apa yang kita telah menjelaskan, kita hendak melaksanakan suatu masyarakat yang berbilang bangsa, berbilang bahasa, berbilang kebudayaan, yang bagi faedah yang sama rata kepada semua golongannya, patut kita melaksanakan masa sekarang. Malam ini dalam ucapan saya dalam 3 bahasa, saya tidak mahu mengulas atau mengulang ucap apa yang saya cakap dalam bahasa kebangsaan dan bahasa Inggeris atau bahasa Hokkien. Oleh sebab perasaan atau sentimen tiap-tiap golongan barangkali tidak sama. Dan patutlah saya dengan istimewanya membagi sedikit nasihat kepada tiap-tiap golongan bagaimana kita boleh menyatu padukan masyarakat kita dan kehidupan kita. Saya faham tahun yang dahulu sebahagian orang merasa mengesal oleh sebab sebentarnya terpisah Singapura dengan Malaysia, dan terpaksa kita mencari cara atau kebolehan yang lain. Bagaimana kita menubuhkan suatu masyarakat yang tidak sama dengan masyarakat yang dalam Malaysia. Golongannya, perasaannya sedikit tidak sama. Tapi saya bagi jaminannya, maksud kita tidak ubah. Tetapi kedudukan kita terpaksa diubah, dan patutlah cara dan taktik dan bukan dasar ya, taktik saja diubah. Saya percaya jikalau kita hendak dalam Singapura hidup saja untuk warga negara Singapura saja ya, kita boleh dikecualikan kepentingan-kepentingan penduduk-penduduk yang bilangannya tidak begitu besar di negeri Singapura. Tetapi akhirnya kita mahu dalam Asia Tenggara membinakan satu masyarakat yang asasnya lebih luas dan juga yang boleh membagi kepada semua pihak, biarpun bumi putra atau orang asli atau orang asing, kehidupannya puas hati kepada semua, yang sempurna. Itulah sebabnya pendirian kita tidak diubah. Masa barangkali banyak-banyak. Bagaimana kita boleh menubuh semulanya suatu perasaan yang boleh menyatu padukan rakyat kita semulanya. Dan saya harap warga negara kita, khasnya orang-orang Melayu, boleh bersama-sama dengan semua pihak yang lain maju ke hadapan mengambil pendirian yang menyesuaikan kepentingannya kepada zaman yang akan datang. Jangan tengok ke belakang di zaman yang dahulu kala yang tidak boleh membaikikan masyarakat kita, tetapi melihat kepada hadapan, kepada satu zaman yang boleh mengubahkan cara hidupan semua manusia dalam dunia ini. Dan jika kita gunakan ilmu yang baru atau teknik yang baru, boleh menumbuhkan satu masyarakat yang memuaskan hati semua rakyat kita. Dan akhirnya saya harap kita bersama-sama mengkaji semula, bukan saja kejayaan kita, ada kesusahan dan kesalahan juga. Tahun 64 2 kali rusuhan. Tahun 65 dipecatkan keluar dari Malaysia. Kekalahan, tetapi mengkaji semua. Bukan untuk hendak pergi ke belakang, tetapi hendak mendapat ilmu ya. Latihan, pelajaran bagaimana kita akan datang boleh dengan telitinya melaksanakan rancangan kita lebih lancar untuk satu masyarakat membagikan kehidupan yang puas hati kepada semua warga negara kita. Terima kasih saudara-saudara sekalian. Friends and fellow citizens, this time last year, my colleagues and I had already made a fateful decision on your and our behalf. In the nature of the circumstances, there was no time for consultations. We could not find out what the consensus would have been had we refused to acquiesce and insisted on going on with the kind of Malaysia which we envisaged it was at the time when we agreed to join. But I think it is useful this evening not to go back to the past, the whys and the wherefores, to apportion blame, but more to search deep into our hearts, to ask if the things we set out to do were right or wrong, were good or bad. And I say that we have no regrets. We are completely unrepentant that we set out to build a multiracial, for some time a multilingual, a multicultural community, to give a satisfying life to the many different kinds of people who forgathered here in over 150 years of the British Raj. And we, in the end, on balance, decided to carry on with our multiracial experiment, if you like, to call it, just in Singapore alone, rather than be forced into large-scale conflict in Malaysia. Nothing has altered, not the basic data, nor our basic thinking. What has altered are the circumstances in which we find ourselves. I think it is reassuring on an anniversary to weigh the odds, to see how we have performed. The promises against the performance. And my experience of Singapore and her young, active, energetic, if somewhat exuberant people, is that given honest and effective leadership, an honest administration within which to bring forth themselves, they will make the grade. It has been a year of great and sudden change. Very few countries in the world go through the kind of climacteric we have gone through. 61 to 63, we fought for merger, to sink ourselves in the identity of a bigger whole. 63 to 65, we found ourselves gradually embroiled in something which we half suspected but never quite admitted was possible within such a multiracial situation. And in 65, with decisive suddenness, we found ourselves asunder. And all the while, all the political unpleasantness that followed, we were making progress. Imports went up, exports went up. These are facts and figures, not fictions of the imagination of my colleague, the Minister of Finance. They are checked against every indent that goes in and out of the Harbour Board or Singapore Port Authority. They are checked against our revenue on the same rates of taxation. the number of factories, people they employ, the goods they produce, the value, the houses being built. And they tell a story which I think we have very little to be ashamed of. Almost in spite of ourselves, we forge ahead. Revenue up 10%, economy surging forward. I'm not saying that this will be so for all time with no effort on our part. But I say we will progress so long as we reward initiative and resourcefulness. And as long as whenever we face peril, courage and resolve is never found wanting. But more than just making material progress, like other groups of human beings wherever they are found in the world, we seek permanent salvation, security to time immemorial, to eternity. And we believed, and we still believe, that salvation lies in an integrated society. I use the word advisedly, integrated as against assimilated. I would not imagine for one moment a Singapore government trying to assimilate everybody. 75% Chinese, trying to convert 10% Tamils and Hindus and Tamil Muslims and Northern Indian Muslims into good old Chinamen. Or not even good old Chinamen, good old overseas Chinese Singapore brand, Singapore type. I wouldn't try it. It's not worth the effort. Nor would I try it with the other groups. Certainly not my colleagues like Othman Wok, who has been here for many, many generations. Or even my colleague like Tuan Haji Yaakob from Kelantan, where he was born. Why should we try the impossible? But I say integration is possible. Not to make us one grey mass against our will, against our feelings, against our inclinations, but to integrate us with common values, common attitudes, a common outlook, certainly a common language, and eventually a common culture. And this is most important, that we should understand what is it we are after in the long run. And if we are after a permanent and secure future for ourselves, then this must be done. A society which, as it progresses, improves, flourishes, gives an equally satisfying life to one and all. And if groups are left behind, either on the basis of language, race, religion, or culture, and those groups, the line of division coincides with the line of race, then we would not have succeeded in our long-term objective, a secure future. For so many other countries in this part of the world are faced with the multiracial societies that gradually form themselves over the period of colonial rule. And broadly speaking, there are two ways in which we in Singapore can set the pace. First, prove that the migrant element is dynamic is thrustful, is industrious, and can get on. Of that I have no doubts. But in the process of getting on, is unmindful of his wider responsibilities and his long-term interests, leaving in his train a whole trail of frustrations and bitterness which must have its repercussions throughout the whole region as men's minds begin to ponder on the unpleasant consequences of what we have done or what we have manifested. The other is to demonstrate how a forward-looking, not a backward-looking, not looking to the past for examples, for patterns of behavior and conduct, completely irrelevant in the modern society that we find ourselves. Man reaching out for the moon and the stars, and we don't find our solutions by turning up the dusty pages of some chronicler in some ancient time telling us about some ancient customs more relevant to his days. But that forward, inquiring outlook, keen to learn, keen to make a success of the future. And if we can give everyone, regardless of race, language, culture, an equally satisfying life, then surely that must be a benevolent or a beneficial influence on the whole region, as other people turn their eyes towards us and say, but it is not true. Given the right political attitudes and the aptitudes and the framework of a good, effective administration, all can thrive and prosper. It is in the nature of things that we must talk in parables. And the older I become, the more I'm convinced that sometimes perhaps the prophets speak in parables because they also had to take into account so many factors prevailing in their time. But I would like to believe that we are a people sufficiently sophisticated to understand parables and the value of ever searching new solutions, new ways to achieve old targets. Never be depressed, never be deflated by setbacks. We suffered setbacks. 1964, 2 communal riots. And we don't pretend to ourselves that they weren't communal riots. They were. We face facts. And this is one of the greatest strengths about Singapore. Its willingness to face reality. The 9th of August, we used to celebrate the 3rd of June. Then it was the 16th of September when we promulgated Malaysia. Then it went back to the 31st of August because other people celebrated the 31st of August. Then it has to be the 9th of August. But the 9th of August it is. Not because we wish it to be, but because it was. And this capacity to face up to situations, however intractable, however unpleasant, is one of the great qualities for survival. A people able to look facts squarely in the face, calculate the odds, weigh the chances, and then decide to go it, are a people not likely to go under. And when this time last year, before the news was broken to the world, my colleagues and I carried that heavy burden in our hearts of having made the decision on your behalf. We consoled ourselves with this thought: that whilst thereafter that multiracial society which we had set out to create can only be implemented within the confines of Singapore, we knew deep down that ultimately its impact must spread far beyond its shores. No geographic or political boundary can contain the implications of what we set out to do when we succeed. And there is no reason why, given patience, tolerance, perseverance, no reason why we should not. In this hub, in this confluence of three, indeed four great civilizations, create a situation which will act as a yeast, a ferment for what is possible, given goodwill, forbearance, and good faith. Thank you. 各位亲爱的高民族同胞，去年8月8日，新加坡迄时也未知影，咱是决定了要分家。在安尼款的情形下，领袖政府无办法。 甲人民促销，这个是迫切的决定。8月7日、8月7号，联邦政府讲，脱离开马来西亚。若是无呢，伊无负责任，若是有什么不幸的代志发生，所以咱计算，以后决定两个选择。 较好脱离，唔是因为咱无相信咱的永远的目标，是无加达奋斗落去，就是因为咱知影咧。虽然咱退一步，虽然咱以后的政策，虽然咱以后所 为建立的这个多元种族的社会、平等的空界的社会，其实有含有伫新加坡的国界那点，但是随时咱有感觉，伊会影响咱。若是咱成功，咱会影响咱，定就是超过咱的国界，影响到整个东南亚，大家种族。 大个民族、大个国家，伊个目的是相款。第一是要求生存，唯一的民族还是种族，因为国家的公民无福利，造成生活。以后呢是要 想办法怎样要永久性的坚定迄个社会的基础，所以小弟坦白讲，咱的永远的目的袂通改变。伫东南亚要建立一个多元种族社会，新加坡有两个路袂通行的。第一， 为着家己，意思是讲新加坡公民的利益那样。意思是讲大部分啊，大多数新加坡公民，那就是讲70%拢总是一个种族的，也是为着安尼款的路线呢，安尼款的出路，我看咱的政策、咱的办法拢总无相了。 可能是要 动荡不安，因为咱安尼的表现，听就是会影响到别个国家的人民。所以小弟今暝要甲恁谈谈第二个较好的出路。国家兴亡匹夫有责，无分种族，无分宗教，无分语言，有进步有发达，大家所有的公民得到利益。咱若是为通成功来讲，安尼的表现，定就是为鼓励所谓进步的势力，伫咱邻国进步的势力，因定就会受到新加坡真侪伊的好的一个模范。所以，咱需要淡薄时间。第一呢，慢慢处理咱过去2年的不幸的代志所发生。这小弟坦白甲恁讲，明仔日国庆日到8月9号，去年8月9号被迫脱离，咱今年明仔日宣誓，重新宣誓，结果来了，奋斗落去，为着咱的中原的利益。去年8月9号，一部分人失望，所以今年伊定就袂通参加咱的国庆日的活动，这个是事实。咱定就要面对这个事实，所以咱要利用淡薄时间，好好的处理新加坡的环境。2年、3年、4年、5年后，我看新加坡咱是有把互因成功，逐种族和睦共处，袂通做。失败定就是有失败。伫马来西亚2年2败数乱64年、65年被迫脱离，但是立场永久的目标，要好好计算是对的。所以无论如何，要进来实行这个对咱的前途是真正迫切的这个问题。小弟希望每一年，咱新加坡的进步，常时毋是伫经济方面啊，也是社会上啊，这个是无够强。咱的国家更较美丽，咱的财产更较丰富，别人心内会不满的感情，可能更加悬，更加厉害。所以常时咱是要表现，毋是搞做生意啦，毋是真正做代志，常时是高压的魄力。为咱的前途保证，任何人要侵略还是干涉咱，一定要计算200万，加牺牲一切的人民，加奋斗落去。意思就是讲，伫5年、10年的时间，改变一般上的人生观，有勇有谋， 是咱新加坡会通保救咱永远生存的一个好办法。有无无用是无够呀。明仔日伫政府大厦的操场上，你会看到咱一年的工作，不是完全一年啦，这个是差不多7个月的工作啦。因为头3、4个月，其他的分队是要迫切，无办法慢慢做好事。但是，咱的工作开始了，每一年，咱会培养一个新批的、健强阳明的一代，伫学堂内面培养因、锻炼因，互因起来，敢做代志，为着争过人民的利益。牺牲一切，敢牺牲一切。若是别个人明白，咱是敢牺牲一切。我看咱的前途是和平，是安宁的。这个是历史，互咱真好的教训。